Hey, you're wide receiver Khalil Shakir, right?
I sure am, kid. Here, go long.
Whoa! You're pretty good at football, man.
And you guys are pretty good at pizza.
Oh, sick.
Dude.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast, where we are here to pay the bills. I am joined by Mike Bunt, Mike Partham, and Carson Haig. This is Jake Micah. As always, we're back here Thursday night this time, away from New York, back on last year's day. Thursday night, heading right to I don't even know what's going on in the Sabres game yet. Honestly, haven't even looked, but probably better. And we're here to talk some Bills football. We're heading into Week 18. The playoffs are on the horizon. The Bills are the 2 seed. It's a choose your own adventure type of night. I loved choose your own adventure. I don't know about you guys when I was a kid. Loved the choose your own adventure. So we're gonna do some tonight. But first, we have business to settle. It's Victory Thursday. As you know, we got to celebrate here. We didn't get to celebrate together on Tuesday. And I'll start with you, Bund, and we'll go around here. And I'm very interested to get to Carson here, see what he said, because there was talk for this season and preseason. I just want us to give one last little opportunity to relish. You can enjoy the present, the moment. Let's relish one last time in probably taking out Aaron Rodgers' career, definitely career as a Jet, and putting one final stomp in them. Because I don't know about you guys, it made me so mad all summer. The USA Today, I think, is the one with the worst one, where they had the Jets at like 13-4 or something. Just all the talk and everything. Now, I didn't think it was going to go this hilariously bad. And it was a perfect explanation for how it's going. If you want to relish, you guys can take it whatever you want. I needed to relish in it for at least 3 more minutes here at the start of the podcast, though, because Sunday was a blast.
Yeah, I don't know if I really feel like I need to relish it. It's more like the Jets suck, and they're horrible, and I can't believe they're as bad as what they are. And Aaron Rodgers looks like an old man that's football career is past him, which – I mean, I guess for him it's sad, but everybody has an expiration date, and Aaron Rodgers can't play football anymore. Maybe if you put him behind a good offensive line with good weapons, he could still be middle of the pack and maybe enough to get a team to the playoffs. But the Jets are just a dumpster fire, and that's what we saw on Sunday. The Bills' defense has not been that good this year, at least in recent times. And they shut them out for 3 quarters. So that's really all you need to know about the Jets is you get an ounce of pressure. Rodgers can't avoid it. With the way defense is played now, primarily nickel, 2 safety high, he can't make plays down the field. And he's not good enough now at this age to really carry a team the way it's expected for him to do. So I wouldn't say relish, but more enjoy how bad the Bills kicked their ass on Sunday afternoon.
Well, even if you're not going to relish in it, I will, because the Jets have been spending most of their lives living in Josh Allen's paradise, or at least they are now. And I bet they're asking themselves, why are they so blind to see that the ones that are hurting are Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the team? You see what I did there?
That was beautiful. Well done.
Listen, I don't care who was picking the Jets or the Dolphins to win the AFC East. We knew what we had, and we know what they had coming into the season. We knew, a lot of people that knew that they could see, even with skipping over a season, that Aaron Rodgers was just shot. And even though they played us tough the first game, even though we had a tough game against the Patriots a couple weeks ago, I mean, the Jets were a dysfunctional mess coming into this game, and they left a dysfunctional mess. Basically, they are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were.
And no way we were going to let them off the hook. Not after we shut out Rodgers for 3 freaking quarters. I mean, 4 different quarterbacks played in this game. 3 of them threw touchdowns. Guess which one didn't? A future Hall of Famer, supposedly. I guess he's going to go in the Hall of Fame. I guess you got to let him in for setting some records and I guess winning a Super Bowl. But what a way to end his career if this is going to be the end. And let's hope it's not the end with the way this is going. I mean, the virtual team owner, team GM, team coach, team quarterback is basically he's calling his own shots by calling his own number out of the game. He's saying, you know what, at this point, put Tyrod in. And he goes and leads them, of course, against scrubs against scrubs, mind you, but he goes and leads them for 2 touchdowns, which was nice for the Bills fans who remember Tyrod. And we recently remembered the end of the playoff drought and Tyrod's part in it. We got to see him, one last time in this stadium, having a little success, not at our expense because the game was well in hand at that point. But getting rushed for a safety in the end zone, having him commit a personal foul penalty on an interception they threw because he's such a poor sport that he's glaring at his wide receivers when he's the one throwing balls in the dirt that they couldn't possibly catch. So it's hilarious to see the implosion of the Jets and of Aaron Rodgers in real time right in front of our faces. And now we can just leave them we might not be able to leave the Dolphins in the dust just yet, but to be able to just put the Jets aside and say, well, you tried. At least you tried. Give them that Simpsons cake that Bart Simpson had. At least you tried. Or maybe they didn't even really try as far as this game is concerned. But it was satisfying from beginning to end. A little bit stumbles in the first quarter. I mean, it was only 12-0 if you want to say that, but it was all gangbusters in the third quarter, and Allen got to set up another fourth quarter, and it was Trubisky time again, which is a point to be made for his MVP candidacy, but we'll leave that for another segment. But Carson, I want to know what your thoughts were on this game overall.
As somebody that chose the Jets to win the division this year, I was one of them.
I see. That's why we're trying to get to Carson.
So I was clearly wrong. I should have known better. The Jets are going to jet. Woody Johnson is probably right now losing his mind at that.
He's probably starting up his Madden game again to reevaluate his team.
Jerry Judy, yes.
Wait for the roster update.
I should have known better. The Jets are going to jet. Aaron Rodgers. Hey, the talk coming into Sunday though was, hey, he's on a little bit of a heater, 4 or 5 games. Don't let him get hot. Comes in hurt. Team falls apart. What we saw Sunday was a team. It's obvious when a team is playing with confidence and when a team quits. And the Bills are playing with confidence. The Jets quit here in the second half after the 12-0 lead. Once it became 19-0, you could stick a fork in it. The Jets were never coming back. They really just don't have any identity this year. And after that, you could see they wanted out. Penalties. Penalties were killing them all game. Specifically, though, I loved that first quarter. It's just a classic random beef. The Bills' offensive line, Jets' defensive line has. That was awesome. It continued for a majority of the game, so I love that. It showed to me that the Bills, we knew that they were a gritty team, but when they needed to, get a little dirty, down and dirty, throw some sand, they did that. So that was nice to see. But for me, I was just really, really impressed. I was a little concerned at the end of the first half. That would be 2 weeks that we were trending on a way where we did not play our best football entering the postseason. However, second half, they obviously just turned up. So it's great to see that. I don't think the Jets are going to be competitive anytime soon, so you guys can stop hearing that from me. But good win. You deserve that. And clinched the 2 seed here, and here we are a few days a week from week 18 with a lot of guys to talk about and a lot of things to talk about. So vibes are still very high.
Hey, Carson, you made a good point. I mean, this Jets team, by their own admission, after the game, they quit. I wish I had that now classic clip of Charles Barkley saying, you know what, they quit. Drive their ass down to Galveston, Texas, and let them swim in that dirty-ass water.
That's awesome. Yeah, you could tell. I mean, I love watching Aaron Rodgers games just because Parthy brought it up. His reactions are just phenomenal. Some dude doesn't do specifically what he wants. He's screaming. He's letting them know. And then you could tell in the second half, he just didn't give a damn. He's laughing at the unnecessary roughness penalties, post-game pressers. Now the dude he doesn't care. He's made his money. He's on a terrible organization right now. He's going to the Hall of Fame, first ballot. Besides, it's his organization. He's calling the shots. He's just out there playing with his boys. And that's kind of how it's been all year, and clearly that has not been successful. So if this is it for Rodgers, hell of a career, man. You deserve to be first ballot Hall of Famer. Definitely. For me, I know not for you guys, but he would be the last quarterback of my childhood to retire, and that would be kind of a sad moment for me. But hey, maybe he's got another year left. And
you know who Aaron Rodgers is right now? He's the quarterback from the Replacements that takes over for Shane Falco. He's King who wants to tell the players how to do their shit because he's the great player, but the players don't respect him around him. That's Aaron Rodgers right now, trying to tell everybody how much they suck when it's really him at this point of his career that truly sucks.
Yeah. Do you think he plays next year? Do any of you think he plays
I
next
do.
year?
I do think he plays next year.
I don't think so.
If he's playing Sunday to try to get this touchdown, right? To get that 500.
Where does
That's a
he
good
go?
point.
Where does he go? If you're a good team, you don't want him as your quarterback. So the only realistic spots for him are going to be poor organizations. If he wants to keep playing, yes, he can still play, but it's not going to get much better regardless.
Yeah, who would?
of where he goes.
I think the Jets keep him. It depends, obviously, who comes in with the GM role and the coach. But I think the Jets wouldn't mind keeping him at least for 1 year. You draft somebody. Obviously, I know there's that conflict of whether or not Rodgers is accepting of a rookie quarterback, but it seems like there's a little bit more than what the media shows. If I'm the Jets, I think I might keep him for 1 more year. But
He's been taking shots at the owner lately, though.
He has. Yes, I do agree.
I think Rodgers is basically saying to Woody Johnson, I'm not playing for you guys next year.
That could be for sure.
Could he go to the Giants? That'd be the funniest option.
I would rather retire.
I don't really know where he could go. There's a sneaky team that I think could blow it up this summer. That's the San Francisco 49ers. But if they weren't and they wanted to get rid of Purdy and wanted to go 1 more year with a 1 year guy or a short term, it wouldn't be the worst deal. If if they're just like, we have 1 year left with this core, we don't want to play Brock Purdy $50 million. So let's bring Aaron Rodgers in on a prove it, one last gasp thing, and we'll see if this roster can do anything. That's the only thing I could think of. I do think the 49ers are going to blow it up. I don't think they're going to keep this team together, though. That's an off-season conversation we can have later on. But that's the only scenario for a maybe good team. But other than that, you're right. Like, why would he's not a good quarterback. He can't move. Like I was talking about it on the post game with Maniac on Sunday. Like, the biggest thing that was the best thing about Rodgers is would be his escapability and improvisation, like out of the pocket and making those plays down the field when he got outside and doing that. He can't even get out of the pocket anymore. He's too slow. He's just washed. And it is what it is.
That's why Brady was able to play till he was 45. He was so good in the pocket. Mm-hmm. That didn't matter that he was aging and slowing down. He still could do everything else that he needed to, and he had an offensive line that could protect him. Really, in the NFL now, once you lose your mobility, you really don't have that next level. That's why I've always said it's going to be interesting what Josh Allen will look like as he gets older, because I think Josh has enough tools to where he can still be elite going into his upper 30s. But if Josh ever does lose the mobility and improvisational skills as he gets older, he could fall off a cliff at some point in time. I don't think that'll happen, but with a lot of these mobile quarterbacks now, their ceilings are higher than ever before when they're at their peak. Mm-hmm. But their peak doesn't exactly last as long as what you would think if they lose certain skill sets quicker.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but that was enough relishing in the Jets. Let's get on to some Bills topics here. Right now we're heading in to week 18. The 2 seed's completely locked up. The Bills are going to be the 2 seed no matter what. We've got an MVP race to get into. There's still a lot going on here, but I think the biggest thing to talk about and the biggest thing going into the weekend is not the Bills game. Really doesn't matter unless you think it would be I think it would just be hilarious if the Bills rolled over in this game and the Patriots lose the number 1 seed, beat the Bills week 18. Funniest possible outcome. But really this comes down to who are the Bills going to play in the wild card. We have three options. That's really all it is. The most likely option, I don't know what the percentages is. I'll get the New York Times predictor up at the very least so we can get some kind of thing. I think it was around 64% is what I saw for the whatever it was on ESPN the other day for the Broncos, who are the most likely team. If the Broncos can just win it into this thing. Obviously the Bengals needing the most help. They need the Dolphins and the Broncos to lose and to win over Pittsburgh. And then the Dolphins just needing that Broncos loss and a win on their end, but Tua's health being the biggest question. So I'll start with you, Carson. There's two different ways to look at this. Who do you think it's going to be, and who would you like it to be? And they might be the same answer, because I think that we might all be along the same lines. As of right now, the Broncos 47% likely to make the playoffs, Dolphins 36%, Bengals 17%. That's what we're looking at on New York Times. But what are you looking at with that 7 seed spot, Carson?
For myself, it's the same. I think it's going to be the Broncos. They're playing the Chiefs backups, who are more than capable of winning that game. But obviously, this is a bigger game for Denver than it is KC. They're going to be just letting everything fly for that game to win the game you get in the playoffs. So for me, I think it's going to be Denver. I would like to see it be Denver as well. I think it's a good matchup for us. The run game, let's see what I wrote down here. The run game is atrocious, which is a great matchup for us because our defensive run game is shaky at best. I think we're 21st, in the league or something like that against the run. So that's a good matchup for us. And offensively, they have a very good defense, but it's to the point where our offense, I'm confident in our offense enough where I don't really care how good the other side is as far as defense goes, because I've seen time and time again, Josh Allen gets it done. We saw it, numerous times this year on occasion. And I really do think Denver's probably our best matchup. If anybody there's to stay away from, though, it's Cincinnati. I do not want to play them at all because I think we do not match up well against them. We haven't in years past. They were likely going to win. I think it was 3 years ago today where DeMar Hamlin, that incident happened. I thought they were going to run away with that game, and they showed that in the playoff game coming into our building that they dominated us. So to me, that's a team you really want to stay away from. Miami as well. I'm not scared of Miami, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row in 1 year. We've done it before, but still, I love the matchup with Denver. I think that's their best way to go.
Who do I think it's going to be? The Broncos have played the Chiefs tough, even when they were playing Mahomes and all the starters at once. Of course, the Chiefs just escape with their black voodoo magic as they always did. So if they're just going to play the Chiefs backups and the Chiefs aren't really going to be concerned about it, I would expect the Broncos to win. Nick seems to be coming into his own, even if he has a rookie mistake here or two. Who do I want it to be? Selfishly, as much as they actually do scare me, and I fear a first-round knockout if we were to face them, deep down, I want to face the Bengals. I want another shot at these assholes. I don't want to say anything too bad right now. I want a shot at those SOBs, trying to clown us for, putting in, neutral site tickets and like that's not standard procedure, trying to find any kind of, personal slight against them. I want to beat the Bengals because we haven't beat Joe Burrow's Bengals, just like we haven't beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. And just like we lost to the Ravens earlier this year, I want to go through all the teams that have beaten us either recently or historically. Think back to the 2004 Red Sox, and I was riding with those guys at that time. How much more satisfying was it for them to go through the Yankees? Not only did they go through the Yankees, but humiliating them by going down 3-0. Not that they intended to do that, mind you, but the way that they did it, embarrassing the Yankees and then beating the Cardinals, a classic World Series opponent for them, and getting the 86-year schneid off their backs. It had to be so satisfying to beat one of their biggest rivals on their way to the World Series. I want the Bills in an ideal, type it up in a Hollywood script scenario. I want them to go through the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chiefs in that order on the way to the Super Bowl, and we'll figure out the Super Bowl opponent at that point. But that being said, they do scare me, but in order to get your, ideal storyline, it wouldn't mean as much if we beat the Dolphins, because we've beaten the Dolphins. We've beaten the Dolphins in the regular season. We've beaten the Dolphins in the playoffs. As much as they might have a chance of matching up against us, as Carson points out, it is tough to beat a team 3 times in a row, no matter how superior your talent is or your coaching is. But the Dolphins just don't do anything for me, and the Broncos I'm just neutral about it as it is. I'd rather go through Cincinnati if ideally, if you say we're going to go to the Super Bowl and I can pick out who we're going to beat along the way, I'd want to go through the Bengals first on the way to Baltimore and the Chiefs. But I think the better matchup for us might be Denver, actually. Bunt, what do you think?
Partham, as much as I respect your love for narratives and storylines, I like living in reality better, where the Bills can actually get to a Super Bowl. And unfortunately, if the Bills played Cincinnati in the first round, the Bills are going to lose to Cincinnati in the first round. No,
Joe Burrow is having an MVP caliber season.
Joe Burrow would be the MVP if
He
he
would.
had a winning record right now.
Still might
The
be.
fact of it is, why did the Bengals lose a lot of games early in the year? Because the defense sucked. What's the defense doing lately? They're playing better. They're not playing great, but they're playing good enough to let Joe Burrow win them games. And here's what I differ from most Bills fans. I love Bills Mafia. I'm a Bills fan. I'm a Bills season ticket holder. But unlike most Bills fans, I'm a rational person. So I don't think stupid thoughts. And most Bills fans keep saying stuff like, why should we be scared of Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Why should we be scared of Joe Burrow? Well, how about they're just as good as Josh Allen? And your defense isn't that great at the current moment. So why would you want to face them when you have easier paths available that don't necessarily include them? Kansas City doesn't get to the Super Bowl every year because they have to get past the top teams ever. They normally just have to beat one team in the AFC Championship. Last year was the first time they really had to make a run through like a very tough group of teams. But if you're telling me the Bills can get past Denver, somehow maybe the Chargers get an upset and you're playing Houston and Pittsburgh, and then you beat Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl, I don't care who you have to beat. I'll take a win over Denver, Houston, and then the Chargers upsetting Kansas City and beating the Chargers. And hell, I'll take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. And you know what? It still counts. It still counts, and I don't care who they beat to win it. Because the narratives, what are we talking right now about MVP and regular season? The narratives don't matter. Screw the media. The media makes up any narratives they want anyway. Last year was all about winning is what got you the MVP. This year, they're saying it's about stats. They're going to change the narratives regardless. So who cares? My thought of it is this. I think it's going to be Denver, and I want it to be Denver. And very simple logic. Denver is going up against the Kansas City backups, and I don't think the Chiefs want Cincinnati to be their divisional round opponent. Deep down, I truly believe Kansas City is going to be playing a very vanilla, bland football game. They are not going to be out there trying to win. They are not going to be out there trying to put anything on tape that could be used against them in the playoffs. Yes, Carson Wentz is a capable quarterback. No, I don't expect him to do much. And then when you're not playing without, you're likely not going to have Kelsey, no Pacheco. You're probably playing without Jones, Karlaftis. They're not playing with guys that are even going to be impact players. It's going to be a backup vanilla game plan. And I'm not too scared of Miami, but the fact is, as Carson said and Mike said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. Miami, while the Bills dominate the season series, the playoff game was close a couple years ago. Playing them a third time is not a guarantee to be a win a third time. We needed a 61-yard field goal just to beat them at the end of regulation the last game. So I don't want to take anything for granted against Miami. And I know, Jake, you're going to think this is foolish, but I would pick Cincinnati straight up against Buffalo. I know the Bills have the ability to beat Cincy, but Cincy plays a brand of football that is really difficult for the Bills. It's not even about win-loss. It's about matchup. The Bills are not a team designed to slow down the Cincinnati offense. I would pick the Bengals to score 35 points minimum against this Bills defense. And that means Josh Allen has to go off. And could he? Yeah, he could. But as we've seen in the past, in big moments against an offense like the Bengals or the Chiefs, the Bills have fallen short when it matters. Maybe the team is different, but I really don't want to tempt fate. And it's the same reason why I said I didn't want Baltimore to win the AFC North. Because if you told me the Bills had a Denver, Pittsburgh / Houston, and then they're playing Baltimore or Kansas City, I would tell you I think they have at least a 70% chance to get into the AFC Championship. And then you're saying a coin flipped about getting the Super Bowl. When you're playing Baltimore, I hate to say this to Bills fans, Baltimore would be favored against the Bills on a neutral site.
100%.
Baltimore is a better team analytically than the Bills. And people can say all this about, well, The Bills have stopped Lamar Jackson in the past. The Bills can beat Lamar Jackson. Yeah, they can beat Lamar Jackson. But you know the times the Bills beat Lamar Jackson were prior to his recent ascension to one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. The Bills beat Lamar. Like, if you go through, and I'll be quick. I know I'm going on and on and on. Lamar Jackson's career trajectory is very high level start, MVP level right away. Big drop off years 2, 3. Then he bounces back up the last couple years. The years the Bills beat Lamar, he was not the quarterback he is now. He didn't have Derrick Henry with him now. His receivers weren't at the top of separation like they have now. They are DVOA, the number 4 offense in the history of DVOA, going back the last 45 years. The 4th best metric offense of the close to 50-year period. DVOA thinks they're a better offense than what the Bills in Detroit are right now. I don't want that. And I'm probably picking the Ravens over the Bills when they play each other, most likely in the divisional round.
I don't all right, so a couple of things. I don't disagree, Mike, with you that out of these 3 matchups, Cincinnati is by far the worst matchup for the Bills out of a Miami Denver contingent. I think simple to answer my first question, you should want Denver to win, and I think Denver will be the team that ends up getting out of this for all the reasons you said about the matchup with Kansas City. Like, Kansas City has no reason to not want Denver to win that game. I mean, I can't imagine. And Denver already almost beat them in Kansas City. So Denver's going to come out. I think Denver probably wins that game pretty handily, and this is going to be a lot less drama. I did see a lot of complaints from people with the Cincinnati schedule, and I do understand that. It is going to benefit Cincinnati if they do make the playoffs, but also it's just the game that creates the most drama Saturday night. So it is what it is. I think by Sunday afternoon, Denver wins handily, whatever it is.
What are you talking about with the schedule? Just so I can get.
Someone was complaining. I saw multiple people complaining that it was an advantage for Cincinnati to be playing Saturday night because they'll know ahead of time and they'll have an extra day of rest and all this other stuff. And the Steelers might not be playing for the AFC North in that.
I would get that, but the Steelers don't want to play Baltimore.
Exactly. And the Steelers, it's the Browns and Ravens. So, like, I think the Bengals can just assume the Ravens are going to go and shit kick the Browns because that's likely what's going to happen. Have you seen the Browns play in the last couple of weeks? Like, the shit's over. But I want to talk about Cincinnati because Cincinnati's on a great run, 4 in a row to get back into this, whatever. And they have been better defensively, Mike, but they have played Denver, and they let up 24 to Denver. And we were talking about this is a preferred matchup. They played the Browns, the Titans, and the Cowboys. Not exactly a murder of rows of a 4-game win streak. The games before that, they let up 44 to Pittsburgh. They let up 34 to the Chargers, and they let up 35 to Baltimore in that classic Thursday night game. So this defense against the good teams before having this little run was having some issues. The Bills have played in these games this year too. They have 2 games on the ledger with games in the 40s. They lost one and won one. It would be a coin flip situation. But if you're the thing is, and I agree with all your points about Baltimore too. Like Baltimore, I think on a neutral site, if I were handicapping it, I'd give it like Baltimore 1.5, Baltimore -2. I do think they are probably the better team. The public thinks they're a better team. They got 9 Pro Bowlers today. So they clearly think that it's a more talented team than the Bills. I get all that. The one variable that we won't be able to tell until next weekend is Lamar Jackson's play has dipped every single year in the playoffs. And this is not me hating. Maybe this is the year. Eventually, between the Bills and the Ravens, the reason that we're butting heads so much is it's the same thing we're trying to bust through is the wall of Patrick Mahomes, the glass ceiling of beating Mahomes and getting through the AFC. The problem is, no, you don't win the game until you do it, right? And both these guys have not won the big game until they get it done. And only one of them is going to win that big game this year. Only one of them is going to have to get a chance. So we're both in the same scenario where the fan bases are just going to be colliding until that game actually happens. I'm terrified of the Ravens playing them in a matchup, but this is just what I've seen from Lamar in the past in the playoffs. Is this the best team? Does he have Derrick Henry as his support? Is Zay Flowers the best receiver he's had? Yes. All these things are true, but his play has just dipped every single year in this time. So that's the one variable I want to see when they play either the Chargers or the Steelers, who are going to be, those are two great defenses. I still think they would be able to beat those teams. But if that game's messy and close, I'm going to have a lot more confidence of them coming into Orchard Park than if it's Lamar lighting them up for 40 points. You know what I mean?
The problem I have, though, is like, what do the Bills falling short and the Ravens falling short last year have in common? It was against Kansas City.
Yes.
Like, the Ravens they dismantled the Texans last year at home, and then they lost to Kansas City where they overthought things and they tried to make Lamar a passer, which was probably a stupid strategy, which now they have Derrick Henry, which will make it harder for opponents to stop their run game. They're built more to win January football now than what they were in the past. And what has the Bills' kryptonite been in the playoffs? Their defense falls apart. Well, who's their defense normally falling apart against? It's Cincinnati and Kansas City, elite offenses. So I guess like my fear is like, if I'm handicapping things, like, am I saying the Chiefs are going to win a third straight Super Bowl? No, because they've lost. No team has ever done that before. But if you were to ask me today, who has the best shot of representing the AFC in the Super Bowl? I'm going Kansas City.
It's all of us are KC.
I'm going Kansas City. And the reason being, what did we see Kansas City do against Pittsburgh last week? We saw their offense start to open things up and spread the ball out. I've had this belief. I picked Kansas City after the Bills game to beat Baltimore and beat San Fran. Why? Because I don't believe that Kansas City lets everything out in the regular season. I think they play things close to the chest. They keep a lot of things vanilla, and they know that they can get by on their talent alone. In the playoffs, what do? They bring out things that you don't expect. They bring out things that you haven't seen. And they trust that their defense is going to make timely plays and that Mahomes is going to carry them when it matters the most. Now that they have home field, if they end up playing a team like Pittsburgh or Houston in the divisional round, that would mean they're hosting the AFC Championship. And if the Bills and Baltimore play each other in the divisional round, that means they're going to go toe-to-toe, kicking the shit out of each other just to get to the AFC Championship. That means the Bills and Baltimore aren't going to be able to hold back a round before. They're going to have to show all their tricks. They're going to have to show everything that they can do just to get to that point to play Kansas City. Well, Kansas City might be, who knows, they could be cruising in the third quarter of a game up by 20 and just walking their way to another AFC Championship game appearance. And my fear is really this. Do I think Buffalo and Baltimore are good enough to get to the Super Bowl and win it? Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, neither of those teams knows how to win the big game. And I don't think it's a Lamar thing. I don't think it's a Josh Allen thing. I think it's you're going up against one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history. And it's hard mentally to overcome that. And the reason why I laugh at a lot of Bills fans when they keep, like we talked about this a few weeks ago, would you rather be the 1 seed and host Baltimore in the divisional round, or would you rather be the 2 seed and go through Denver, Pittsburgh? And ultimately, I think we all said be the 1 seed. And a lot of people laughed at the idea of being the 2 seed and going through like Denver and Pittsburgh. But the one thing that we're a little naive about, not us, but like Bills fans and fans in general, a lot of times making a run in the playoffs is about the luck of the draw, who you get in front of you. Denver, Pittsburgh are not top 10 DVOA teams. Their offenses are not in the top 10 either. They can't keep up with Josh Allen if the Bills are scoring points. So on paper, you could actually say it's an easier path for the Bills to get to an AFC Championship if they had that path than versus a bye and playing Baltimore in the divisional round. Now, that's not how it's going to work out. But a lot of people say stuff like, well, come playoff time, you're going to have to beat the best team, so it doesn't matter when you play them. But that's not always true. A lot of teams that end up making runs, there was an upset before they played a team. They had a team that was really good, but they were a tough matchup for that team. Like, we keep asking, why do the Bills fall short in the playoffs every year? And it really comes down to this. They've had tough draws I'm not going to say the AFC Championship year, but they've had very tough draws 3 straight years where they were playing teams that were difficult matchups for them in the second round. If the Bills were in the NFC the last 4 years, they could have been to the Super Bowl 2 or 3 times. And we keep saying, oh, they got to just beat these teams. You don't just beat an all-time dynasty like the Chiefs. You have to play a near flawless game of football. And I guess my biggest fear is they're going to have to do that against Baltimore as well. And do you really trust the Bills when it matters the most to deliver that type of performance when it's win or go home? And
Mike, there's only one team I do trust in the National Football League to do that, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs.
In our conference,
I know, I understand, but I agreed with you that I would pick the Chiefs right now. If we're handicapping it, I would roll with that.
But that's the problem with all of this is like it's.
But I don't think Baltimore's at that. Baltimore has not shown that in a game they can stand. Baltimore can come to Orchard Park and lay an egg. Like that is very possible.
They can lay an egg, but like the point of it being. A lot of people talk, Jake, about like Super Bowl or bust. You looked at the percentages. The percentages say the Bills have a 15% chance. Like you can't be talking Super Bowl or bust when you have an 85% chance of not winning the Super Bowl. Like we don't even have a 50% chance of getting to the Super Bowl. So like the point of it is we as a fan base have these expectations, but the numbers tell us that our expectations, they're a possibility. But they are the furthest thing from like actually being likely from happening.
That's 100% fair. That's Parthy. You can go, Parthy.
Well, Mike, as you pointed out a few weeks back, defending Sean McDermott and his repeated failure in the playoffs, one thing you pointed to was the defensive injuries up and down the line, whether it was defensive line, linebackers. Milano's been hurt multiple times. Secondary injuries. And granted, we don't have the same players that we had before. Micah Hyde is on the team, but not going to be out there playing, and Jordan Poyer is not anywhere to be found. And we're still a little bit beaten up, but not impossibly so, not where we can't get to a healthy point within a couple of weeks, given that most of the stars are going to be sitting out this week. So my point of contention is as long as our defense is as fully healthy as it can be, I think we have a better chance than we have against these same teams, these same quarterbacks that we faced and had early exits in the divisional round, a better chance this year than we've had in past years. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
I think they do have a better shot than in previous years, but I would say I thought they had a shot last year. They had a chance against Kansas City late, and the thing that makes the reason I can never go all in on the Bills when it comes to winning a Super Bowl is the margins of error are very thin when you're going up against an all-time great team. So, like, do I think the Bills can beat the Ravens any given Sunday? 100%. But then they have to not only beat the Ravens, they have to back it up with an equally perfect performance the very next week. That's where I struggle with. Do I think they can play perfect football 2 consecutive weeks when everything is on the line? And the odds tell me it's not likely that was going to happen. That's why I was so adamant about wanting a path that avoided the Ravens. And could it happen? Yes. But like, let's see like these odds right here, like plus 250, plus 310, 270. Like these are all realistic odds. Like you would love to be the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Ravens in this scenario. They're basically saying like you have a solid chance of representing the AFC and going to the Super Bowl. It's just at the end of the day, will the Bills defense be able to step up when it matters the most? Will Josh Allen come through and make the play that's needed when it matters the most? Because I know this is a stupid point, but let's just because Josh isn't the reason they lost 13 seconds. Like Josh has played incredible in several of these playoff games. But let's look back to a situation last year. The Bills are on a 6+ minute drive, down however many points, 3 points, they start to drive around 7 minutes left in the AFC divisional round. A touchdown with under 45 seconds left puts them up 4 points likely. It forces Kansas City into a spot where they need a touchdown. to win the game. A field goal, Kansas City ties the game and they likely score at the end of regulation to win. But if you score too quickly, Kansas City's going to have time left and they're going to have the ability to drive the clock. One of the things that came out in Tyler Dunn's article the one time was that Sean McDermott was critical of the Bills' offense for scoring too quickly in the 13 seconds game. And if you remember, they scored right around the 2-minute warning, then Kansas City scores, and then the Bills were lucky to be able to get another touchdown late. We were all talking about how Deion Dawkins got beat by Jones, tapping the elbow, which then caused the throw to be off. And most of the smart football people were saying, well, you got to take the points there anyway. But I still believe deep down, the smart play would have been going to Diggs across the middle of the field on second down. Because in that scenario, even if you score a touchdown, what is the probability of your defense stopping Kansas City in a 4-down territory situation with 1:45 left, multiple timeouts for them, and you've only stopped them once all game outside of a fluke turnover near your end zone? The chances, most likely, the Kansas City goes down the field, scores, and wins the game still. The Bills were chewing up clock the entire time. They had Diggs open for what would have been a 7-8 yard completion, would have made it 3rd and 2. Clock continues ticking. You've been moving the ball. You convert the 3rd and 2, and then now you're under a minute left. You're inside the 15. You're going to have a chance to either kick a field goal with almost no time remaining to either force overtime, or you could get a touchdown. But what did the Bills do? They took a shot at a point when they shouldn't have taken the shot. See, a lot of fans won't even think about that point because they're thinking, well, you just got to score. The reason the Bills lose these games is because they do not, against the teams like Kansas City, they don't do those super, super small, finely tuned details that need to be done properly to win against one of the best teams of all time. The Bills don't fall short against the Chiefs because they don't play good football. They fall short because the Chiefs execute at a near flawless level, and the Bills don't execute at that level. But the only time the Bills need to perform at that level is when they're playing a team like the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bengals. But we only see them play them when it matters in the playoffs. And the Bills haven't shown up when it matters. So as Jake said, these odds are meaningless because we don't really know what we're going to see from the Bills until they get in that tense moment and what they do in that time. And we don't know what they're going to do in that moment.
I think it should be pointed out, too, that the Chiefs, yeah, they've done this before. They've had their bye week. 25 days, though, man, that is a long time for some of your core guys. And I get their best. They've played some snaps. They don't necessarily need to play. But having 3 weeks off, remember a few years ago when they played Houston, they were in trouble early against that game. I think it was, 21-3 or something like that early. And Houston just wasn't really the team to run away and take that one. I don't think they were at that caliber yet. And to me, if whoever it is, this is why I think Baltimore is the most dangerous team coming out of the AFC instead of KC. History will say, yes, KC. But at the same time, history will also tell you that no team has won 3 straight Super Bowls. So something has to give, right? So for me, Baltimore is the most dangerous, barring a Lamar collapse, which has also happened in the past. But they were able to run the ball efficiently. They get separation like no other. The defense has been excellent for majority of the season. I think that let's say Baltimore, we play Baltimore in the divisional. Whoever wins that to me is the favorite in that game. KC at Arrowhead, they're going to be a tough beat in the AFC Championship, but there is no guarantee to me that the AFC Championship is hosted in Arrowhead. I just feel that 25-day span, if they play a team, like we said, it's all matchups. It's who you play, what time, is there an upset? I don't know if KC is going to be ready after that 25 games. I understand that they're a dynasty. They have some of the best players, to run in the league of late. So I just think Baltimore scares me more than KC, for sure. At least our matchup when they go head to head. And reminder, Baltimore was 3 inches away to start the year. That was a long time ago, but they were 3 inches away from winning that game, and the Chiefs would have started 0-1. And since then, Baltimore's been an animal since starting 1-3. So I love Baltimore. They're my team this year. Then I'd follow it up definitely with the Chiefs, and I'd say us. But it's a three-headed race right now. I'd say that's why Baltimore is my favorite. But anything can happen, and that's the beauty of it. I think the Bills are a little bit different this year. They do so many things well. It's just, like we said, the defense. Can they finally step up? New defensive coordinator and Bobby Babich. They haven't played that well as of late. Great job last week, but you're playing the Jets. So they're going to have to step up if we have any chance this year.
The Chargers are the big thing that can really mess with all this. I think the Chargers are good enough to beat Baltimore on the road. If LA could come in and shock them, assuming that
that's another something's got to give situation in that game, is because Jim has to beat John at some point. It's not going to happen. Their whole careers, John is not just going to beat Jim every single time. It's just not going to change
everything. If the Chargers,
it would change everything. Yeah.
If the Chargers beat the Ravens, then the Bills are hosting Pittsburgh or Houston in the divisional round. And let's be real, if the Chargers then go on the road to play,
they're dangerous in KC. That's a scenario, Carson. That's dangerous.
Give KC problems. Then you're talking about a whole nother avenue of possibilities. And that's really what I try to make known to Bills fans. It's not that the Bills can't make a run if they have to go through Baltimore or KC. It's difficult. It just makes it way more difficult. But it's like, if you could get the Chargers to upset Baltimore, that's sometimes the luck factor that you really need to make a championship run. And we don't talk enough about how in sports, luck plays a role in winning a championship. In the NBA, the better team wins a best-of-7 series 80% of the time. For an NFL team to win, the better team to win 80% of the time, you would need to have an 11-game series for NFL teams for that to happen.
Yeah.
What's even wilder is if you did it for the NHL and MLB, you're talking about 50-plus games needed for the better team to win 80% of the time in those series. So we like to say that championships represent greatness, but the fact of it is the Bills have been a team that has exemplified greatness the last 4 years. They just been on the unlucky side of things.
They're a bad tournament team. That's what it really comes down to, as much as anything.
It's like NCAA tournament. Yeah. Anything can happen any given night. Purdue can lose to some random team. Kentucky can lose to a random team. Doesn't mean Kentucky's not 90% better than those opponents. The Bonnies could beat some random team, but that'd be because they are better, Carson.
There we go. The interesting thing about the two things, Carson, you made the rest point, and we're going to learn about this rust thing, really, because every single seed just in the college football playoff, every single higher seed just lost, and they rested. They had to sit for a month. Now,
that's a whole different level.
It is a whole different thing, but it is two teams that might have been overmatched anyways. But that's 4 games where teams had all this rest and all came out slow, all end up losing that game. So we need more data for that. But it is an interesting thing to think about that scenario coming up, because 25 days is a long time. I think simple. And then Mike, I'll let you jump in here, Parthy. I think the way to describe it for me is the Chiefs are the team. The Bills, this is the most well-rounded Bills team I think they've had
100%
in the Allen McDermott era. But they don't have as high of a ceiling as the Ravens. The Ravens have the highest ceiling, where if the Ravens are playing at the peak of their powers, I don't think anybody in the league can beat them. And they're not as consistent as Kansas City, because that's why Kansas City is here right now. They're the most consistent, as you're talking about, that attention to detail, all those minute things. The Bills don't have either of those advantages. So that's where, Mike, I'm with you. They do have to play 2 damn near perfect football games. And then talking about winning a Super Bowl against a team who like Philadelphia or Detroit or whatever, or Minnesota, that's a whole other thing. But they are capable of playing perfect football for stretches. We have seen it, but I haven't seen it in these moments. So it is unlikely, but it's like you just said, Carson. It's a 3-headed race. Maybe in the eyes of us, it's third of the 3 heads, but that doesn't mean that they can't win 2 games, especially one at home.
Sure.
And especially that doesn't mean, I like that you guys both brought up the Chargers, because that's not likely either. But it's not impossible, especially if Lamar does shit the bed again. Like Lamar could just have another bad playoff performance, and maybe Justin Herbert has an incredible playoff performance, and then this is a close game all of a sudden late in Baltimore, and we're all sitting on the edge of our seats, turning into Chargers fans like we've never been in our lives before. Like this is the playoffs get so wonky.
Can you imagine if that's Saturday? Like you get Chargers, Baltimore on Saturday. You get
yeah, we're waiting.
And the Bills know they're playing Denver and with a chance to host Pittsburgh or Houston. Oh my goodness, man. That would be insane.
That'd be awesome.
It would be.
What's up,
I think
Arthur?
it's for the Ravens. I think it's important to point out this is something that Pat Moran just brought up on the Talking Buffalo podcast, where he was listing a lot of reasons that he thinks that Josh Allen should be the MVP. Admittedly, by his own admission, he's a bit of a homer. But as far as the Ravens go, Derrick Henry in games where he rushes for 100 yards or more, Ravens are 8-0. When he doesn't, they are 3-5. Compare that to our own James Cook. The Bills are 4-0 when he's topped 100 yards. He's barely topped 100 yards 4 times this season. They're 4-0, but they're also 8-3 in the other games where he hasn't. So the Ravens are very reliant on Derrick Henry, but I expect him to be once again a bad matchup for the Bills unless the defense is getting healthier and they can make Bobby Babich can make the adjustments that they need to make. And as far as the Chiefs go, I mean, they have just gotten Hollywood Brown back in their receiving core. He's only been good for 4 or 5 catches for about 45 and 46 yards in the last couple of games, but they have been against KC's, at least currently, is the way things are currently seeded, both of their likely opponents for the divisional round, which are Houston and Pittsburgh. And they blew them both away, 27-19 and 29-10.
Interesting stuff.
It's gonna be a wild ride. This playoffs is gonna be just insane, man. The AFC is gonna be a war. Like if it is Bills Ravens, I can't even imagine what the hype and the nonsense we're gonna have to sift through for that entire week leading into it. And it'll probably be Sunday. It'll probably be Sunday late game too, so we'll have to wait the whole weekend to get to it and everything.
Yeah,
I just don't want it with all the discourse between the two fan bases. Honestly, things have been so toxic on Twitter.
Yep.
It's gotten crazy.
it was going to be this way. It was going to be through Baltimore, either here or at Baltimore, and then Kansas City. Unless we had gotten the number 1 seed, it was always going to be if everything falls the way it should in the wild card round, it was always going to be Baltimore and then KC.
I guess the thing I struggle with the whole like Baltimore, KC, Bills thing is that like I know you can look at the NFC right now and say there's a lot of good teams. There's Detroit, there's Philadelphia, Green Bay, Minnesota. But a lot of the top teams in the NFC, it's a 1-year thing right now where like they haven't been proven for an extended period of time. Is Detroit great? Yes, I think they're great. Is Philadelphia pretty good? I think they're good, but I don't know if Philadelphia is great. I think they're pretty good. Could they be great? Possibly. Minnesota, I don't know if I even fully buy into them at this point. If Minnesota was to play the Bills on a neutral field, how many of us are picking Minnesota? Probably not many of us. The same with Green Bay on a neutral field.
They haven't been experienced enough to know how to win in pressure situations in the playoffs, is what you're basically saying.
I hate talking about the luck factor and the whole situation of like Kansas City, but like playing in the same conference as Kansas City distorts everything.
Yes.
And I think a big part of like why I have the opinions I have about the Bills is because they've fallen short in the playoffs repeatedly. But if they didn't have Kansas City in the same conference, I don't know if I'm thinking the same way. Sam Fran went to 2 Super Bowls.
I was just going to say, it's the theory of why does Kyle Shanahan get, and held in such higher regard than Sean McDermott because he made Super Bowls because he lost to Kansas City all the same.
Kyle Shanahan is better than Sean McDermott. He lost both Super Bowls.
He lost those games to the same damn team. Yeah.
So
exactly.
what's the real difference between Kyle Shanahan and Sean McDermott? Kyle Shanahan made to the Super Bowl twice because he went through a weaker conference. And then at the end of the day, he lost to the same team the Bills lost to in those given years. And that's the thing that frustrates me. Because when Kyle Shanahan isn't going to the Super Bowl through a weaker conference, the 49ers aren't even making the playoffs. Like, they're falling short. The Bills have been consistently great. And because they just so happen to be in the same conference as KC, and KC is historically good, like I'm just going to say this. What if Kansas City does win another 3-4 Super Bowls with Mahomes?
I'm not checking Instagram for the next month.
Like, I don't want to be this guy, but like if Kansas City wins a third in a row, to become the first team to ever do that, and they go to their 5th Super Bowl in 6 years, they will be surpassing what the Patriots ever did.
For sure.
And at some point, instead of being like, well, what do the Bills got to do to get there? What do they have to do? They got to get a pass rusher like Von Miller, or got to get a number 1 receiver, or they have to be everyone eats. I really hate to say it because this sounds defeatist. You just have to hope that Kansas City fucks themselves up and doesn't like show up when it matters. And like, I hate being this person in sports, but if you go throughout the history of time and like professional sports, so the last century, there's dynasties. And in some sports, the dynasties last for 3-4 years. And in other sports, the dynasties last a decade. And in sports like basketball, you've seen stuff like the Celtics, the Lakers dominate for a decade at a time. And no offense, like nobody could beat them. In baseball, you had the Yankees win 4 out of 5 World Series. In hockey, you had the Montreal Canadiens win 4 straight Stanley Cups. Then you had the Islanders win like 4 straight Stanley Cups. Football has been the one sport where you've had dynasties over a decade, but it's normally like 3 Super Bowls. Like they're good. There's great teams, but they're not normally going bang, 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 bang. Like it's 3 and 4 years like the Patriots, 3 and 4 years like the Cowboys. And I fear if that Kansas City, with Mahomes going to that team when they were already loaded up at the skill positions with a Hall of Fame head coach, they won Super Bowls during a period of their quarterback's career that theoretically they shouldn't have been winning Super Bowls. And now he's at the point where he can carry the team with lesser talent around him. And I'm just afraid that if Mahomes wins one this year, can you realistically even go into a season going forward saying, like, we have a chance?
I mean, you'd basically have to pray that Mahomes goes and plays baseball like Jordan did, because that's the only reason the Rockets won a couple between those 3 in rows.
But we did this in our life with Brady, and they had the run, and they were still good from 2000 after the undefeated year in 2007 until they made the Super Bowl again, or won the Super Bowl again. They didn't even win that Super Bowl in 2007. But they don't win the Super Bowl again until what, 2015? Is that the year? So they have at least 7 or 8 years in between where they don't win the Super Bowl. But during that stretch, does anybody think the Patriots are not? Did you go into any season not thinking the Patriots were going to make the Super Bowl?
But
even when
they went to the AFC Championship game, I think like 9 years in a row.
I know that, but the Bills are going to have to beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC.
What I'm saying,
that's what we're going to look at that every single year for the rest of their careers, for sure.
Jake, what I'm trying to say is, yes, we know they're going to have to get past the Chiefs, but it's not a guarantee that they ever will get past the Chiefs. That's the moral of the story.
There's nobody in NFL history who's just went to 15 Super Bowls, man. That's not happened.
No, I'm not saying.
So if he does that, then fuck it, bro. Then he's the GOAT. He's an alien.
Jake,
we have to give him all the credit in the world, but no one's done it.
Jake, Mahomes has been to the AFC Championship game.
I know how great Mahomes is. Like, you're talking about unprecedented greatness that I'm not.
Here's the difference. Mahomes is 100 times better player than Tom Brady. Tom Brady got.
I don't know about 100 times.
No. Like
Tom Brady could not improvise like Mahomes can. He didn't run like Mahomes can.
He didn't get sacked ever, though.
Jake,
sacked.
I'm just gonna ask this, like, not to be condescending, but to ask you, like, seriously, how old are you?
28 years old.
How much do you remember the early Patriots?
Like 2003 on, I remember most.
You know what people don't remember about the early Patriots? Tom Brady wasn't that great of a quarterback yet.
Nope.
He wasn't winning Super Bowls early in his career because he was insane. He was winning because the Patriots had an unstoppable defense, a good running game, and they had good skill players, and they made timely plays. The difference between Mahomes and Brady is that by time Brady got to his peak, that's when the Patriots got to the point where they weren't winning Super Bowls, but their offense was explosive.
And they had a lot of luck too.
Mahomes has gone to 6 AFC Championship games. The 2 losses he had were in overtime. He lost an overtime game on a coin flip to Brady in Brady's last run with the Patriots, and then he lost against the Bengals in a game where they blew a game. It'd be one thing if we were talking about, like, okay, like, you got to get past the Chiefs, and like the Chiefs have lackluster games in the playoffs. The Chiefs literally have 3 Super Bowls, and you can make an argument that seriously, they probably could have 6. Like they could have gone 6.
I could also make an argument they should only have one of the Super Bowls.
But
we could play that game too, Mike. Come on.
But at the end of the day,
I will pull up a highlight of the pass interference if I have to talk about.
No, you're right, Jake. You are right. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is in the next 10 years, let's say Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes.
I give you 7. Hang on.
Let's do it. Let's just do this hypothetical quick.
Okay.
In the next 10 years, they're both around 28. They play another 10 years. Let's say Lamar Jackson is still really good for another 4 to 5 years. Let's say Joe Burrow is elite for the next 5 years. That means you have 4 quarterbacks in the AFC that are at an elite level. There's going to be guys drafted. There's going to be other guys that come into the league that rise to a high level. How many real opportunities are the Bills going to have at getting to a Super Bowl? Because, let's be real, the last 4 years, they've had teams that were good enough to, but they've only even tasted the AFC Championship once, and they didn't even give a fight in that game. So the Bills have really, realistically, in Josh Allen's career, had 0 realistic chances of getting to a Super Bowl. So over the next decade, when they're competing with 3 other elite quarterbacks and other quarterbacks that we don't even know about, how many real good chances are they going to have? I'll say, let's be fair. We'll say they'll have 3 chances in 10 years, maybe 4 chances in 10 years. And then they have to take advantage of those chances. They might lose a couple of those. So what I'm trying to say is the Bills are going to have a window any given year they have Josh Allen. But what it really is going to come down to is, are they going to be able to take advantage of their opportunity when it presents itself to them? And we don't know that. The one thing we do know is that Kansas City steps up when it matters. So who knows, that 10 years from now, we could be laughing. Josh Allen could have 3 Super Bowls. The Bills could be a dynasty. And the Bills could do the same thing Kansas City just did. But the fact of it is, we can't confidently say that because there's another team already doing all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And until they show that they aren't, it's hard to believe that anybody else will.
Here's my perspective on it. I'll let you guys jump in after if you'd like to, because you're right. In the next 10 years, there might be 1 good chance that they get to the Super Bowl, that they have to win it. But I think personally, and maybe this is only me, maybe this is selfishly, I don't care. As long as this is a different thing, but if the Bills win 1 of these Super Bowls, I don't really give a shit about anything else. The Chiefs can win 8 Super Bowls. If the Bills win 1 Super Bowl, I will be satisfied for the rest of my life. And that's truly, I truly mean that. I'm now 8 years removed from the only championship of one of my teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't care if the Cavs playoff losses, they don't hurt me anymore. It doesn't matter. That one really feels good when you don't have it the whole time. So that to begin with, I think I speak with a lot. I think a lot of people agree with me. Now, would I love for them to go on a run and win 4 or 5? Of course. Once they get 1, I'm going to be like, okay. I'm like, yeah, let's keep it rolling, whatever. But my perspective is I know how lucky you got to be to win a Super Bowl. And especially when there's a dynasty in front of you like this, it adds another roadblock. But you just got to be really good for a really long time and hope you get lucky. I know Brandon Beane has said that.
That's what Bruce Nolan says. Be good for as long as you can be and hope you get lucky in the playoffs.
That's how it is in the NFL. And that Bills have done that for 5 years, and there's no sign of them slowing that down. So I can't confidently say I think the Bills are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years because of all the factors you're saying. But I'm not going to confidently say that they won't do it either, because they are one of the teams. They are a team that if you are 30 other fan bases in the NFL, you're like, fuck, man. I have so many Browns fans, friends. You know how many Browns fans would kill to be the Buffalo Bills right now? So as long as they're in a position for the next 10 years, I'll be happy. And if they don't get it done, we can have this conversation again in 10 years and walk through all the dumb things Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane did, and we'll probably do it for the rest of our lives till we're old and gray in the nursing home being like, what the fuck happened? Like our parents are doing right now and everybody else with the 4 Super Bowls. I'm hoping that case isn't us for the next 20 years.
And I agree with you, man. Like what you just said is how I feel. Like we've got to the same point differently. But
yeah.
Like that's what I'm struggling to communicate to people is that there's a lot of luck involved and a lot of people are frustrated that the Bills keep falling short. But my answer to you is like, it's not guaranteed to get any better anytime soon. Like
No.
you're just going to have to hope that luck goes your way one of these years, and
For sure.
sometimes you make your own luck and you take it out of your own, you put it in your own hands. And then sometimes luck is made for you by other teams falling short and having an easier path. And that's really where I struggle with it, because it's like, if the Bills played in the NFC, they can conceivably have a Super Bowl right now. Like, say they make a run, and then somebody on the Chiefs that's important gets hurt in the playoffs along the way, and then you're playing a hurt Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl like Tampa Bay did, and you win a Super Bowl that no one ever thought you should. Or the Rams, the year the Rams won a Super Bowl, that was a lot of luck involved with that. The fact that they didn't have to play KC. But like, this is the thing that I struggle with, is that North American sports base greatness and legacies off of a championship system, which is a lot of luck involved. The reason why you don't have playoffs in Premier League and soccer is you reward the team that's been the best team over the course of a season from start to finish, because they are the best team. Over the course of a long haul, you have more games. That rewards a proper champion. Why do you have tournaments? Well, because there's going to be a lot of teams playing for nothing, and you want to make their lives a little bit more fun, and you want to incentivize fans for watching and them playing for other trophies and things like that. But American sports fans have been trained that championships are all that matter. And it's hard to tell Bills fans that over the last 5 years, the Bills are easily the second best team in the NFL over that span, that they are going through maybe the greatest 5-year run in the history of the NFL for a team that hasn't reached the Super Bowl. Like, what we have been witnessing is greatness. Like, the Bills exemplify greatness. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's a future Hall of Famer. The Bills defense has consistently been a top 10 unit. There's been years where they've been top 3. They win 13 and 11 games on alternating years. Like, and it's so frustrating because say this was 1995 or like 1997 or a random year in the 80s or the 70s. This Bills team would be winning a Super Bowl. And the luck isn't just against them that they have to go up against Mahomes. The luck is against them that our star quarterback is essentially the same age as Patrick Mahomes, meaning there will never be a period in Josh Allen's career where he's not going toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes.
And Lamar, too.
And that is why it is extremely unlucky, because when you look at Brady's career and the period that Brady wasn't winning championships, what happened? Peyton Manning won a few. Ben Roethlisberger won a few. You had Eli Manning win a few. But for the Bills, like, yes, 3 of those quarterbacks were the AFC, but like their teams had ups and downs. They weren't consistently always at the top besides the Patriots. And you had Eli Manning in the NFC. Right now with Burrow, Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, they are all in the same conference. They are all beating up on each other. So, like, while we say stuff like, well, there's no quarterback that's historically been able to carry this over for 15 years, that's not the problem. The problem is, even if Mahomes takes that dip, you need to be the guy that takes advantage of it among Lamar, Burrow, maybe Herbert, and these other people. So that the odds aren't just stacked against you because of Mahomes. Your odds are stacked against you because of everybody else in the league. And that's what makes it really difficult. And I know as a Cavs fan, you love that LeBron championship. And I'm never going to take anything away from you on that, because that's probably one of the greatest sports moments of your life. But as a basketball fan, someone that really loved LeBron when he was on Miami, and a little bit on Cleveland, that Cleveland team, like, fans won't ever admit it, but one of the most disappointing things in NBA history for me is that LeBron played over a decade in Cleveland and has only one championship to show for.
Well,
I
and
know, like,
it's a great parallel for this too, because they get 4 straight finals and they run their head into the greatest
against
dynasty
the
we've seen.
greatest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the reason we're looking at. Yeah.
And that's the thing about sports. It's like we compare, like Ravens fans right now are saying that Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback than Josh Allen because Lamar Jackson has 2 MVPs and Josh Allen has none. And even if Josh Allen wins one right now, there'll be 2 versus 1. Our quarterback is better.
Somehow Josh is going to get less credit when he wins this MVP. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, but think about that. Why are they saying he's better? Well, they're looking at a prestigious honor, and they're saying volume-wise, our quarterback has 2. Your quarterback has none. That means our quarterback is better. But if you go through each individual year, Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, like from 2019 to now, Lamar probably had 2 seasons he was better, but the 1 MVP year was probably just like Lamar had a couple years where he was better than Josh. But Josh, as a whole, has been better than Lamar. But when you look at stuff like that, you're gonna make it think like, oh, Lamar is better. And I think that's what I struggle with so much with this Bills team, is so many people are going to look at the end of this Bills team and they're going to say, well, how many Super Bowls do they have? How many this and that? And ultimately, that's how we measure teams. And I think they're going to be so unfairly looked at back in history when, unfortunately, they just ran up against a dynasty. Like the Colts, if they didn't have the Patriots, the Colts probably would have won like 3 or 4 Super Bowls, and we'd be talking about them as one of the greatest teams in history. And unfortunately for the Bills, like you said, until they beat them,
Yep. Well,
that's the narrative.
The easiest
I think
way
back to the early Super Bowl years when I was, just starting to watch the Bills, and the NFC was on a run of dominance until the Broncos beat the Packers like it was 13 straight. The Bills were the one back then who had the easy path to the Super Bowl because, Dan Marino and the Dolphins, we could handle them in the playoffs. There was nobody that was really consistent. The Chiefs popped up a couple of times, but we beat them both in the playoffs pretty decisively in those years in particular. And then they ran into particularly strong teams from the NFC in the Super Bowl, and they just couldn't compete except for against the Giants. And that was a lot of one play could have been different and things could have been different for them in that one right down to the final kick. But now the Bills are the ones with a difficult path to the Super Bowl and can't seem to, pop their heads above it. So it just seems to be a reverse from that historic time. And I'll put this question to you guys. The Patriots went to 3 in a row. They won 2 out of those 3 towards the end of Brady's run. Had Brady been able to go to one last one in 2019 in his last run with the Patriots, they would have gone to 4 in a row, and they would have won at least a couple of them in that run, and that would have eclipsed the Bills' run. I think back to that Cowboys 3 out of 4 run that you brought up, Mike Bunt. The Cowboys in that one year that the 49ers went instead, they got down 21 points in that fourth quarter, mostly due to turnovers. If it wasn't for a bad first quarter from the Cowboys in that NFC Championship game, they would have gone to 4 Super Bowls in a row, and I have no doubt they would have beaten the Chargers as handily as the 49ers did, and we wouldn't even be talking about the great accomplishment the Bills had because the Cowboys would have equaled it and surpassed it right after the Bills had done it. And the Chiefs here have the potential to go to 3 in a row, win 3 in a row, and now the narrative next season is going to be can they go to 4 in a row and conceivably win 4 in a row? Excuse me, I'm still coming up down from something. And that's just going to be one of the more humiliating things is to completely erase the Bills' accomplishment in 4 straight years and not only go to 4 in a row, but win 4 in a row. And that's just going to be equally as frustrating as not being able to go to 1 with Josh Allen in this era.
Sometimes I wish the NFL was scripted just because I feel like they would want to give.
Oh, the Bills would have won by now.
Yeah, that's how I know the NFL isn't scripted because I really believe like they would have given us one just like, oh, small market Buffalo in the snow.
That might be our key. That might be our saving grace this year. So if we get a Bills Chiefs AFC, no, they're taking the 3 straight Super Bowls. They want at this point they want Mahomes to get there. And then they want Michael Jordan out of this. So I'm going to take back everything I was just about to say. Bills.
I just got to say though, I love the absolute conversation you guys just had. I love listening to that. Just I wanted to let you guys absolutely have that one because the thought of a hypothetical where who the hell knows what happens? Who knows? Maybe the Bengals sneak into the playoffs. They upset everybody. They win the whole thing. Like just the conversation that hypotheticals of it's really based off of what's possible, and just I personally love that because there's no one knows what's going to happen yet. Like the seeding is still not done. Like we were just talking about. Who the hell knows? Maybe the Chargers come in, they upset. Bills are hosting the AFC Conference Championship. Like that is what's so awesome about the playoffs to me because, like we said, it's one game. It's not a best of 7 series, and that's what makes the NFL so mysterious every single year. And it's really anyone's to win.
Can I tell you what I'm scared of the most?
Yeah,
I'm scared that somebody like Lamar or Burrow will get to the Super Bowl and will fall short again. And they'll win it. And then at that point,
it won't be about getting past the Chiefs. It'll be about why the Bills haven't done it.
Yeah.
At that point, no matter how great Josh is, you can't anoint him. Like if Burrow goes to a second Super Bowl at some point before Josh gets to one and Burrow wins one, it won't matter if Josh puts up numbers because Burrow will be.
Then he's really Phil Rivers. Then
if Lamar Jackson gets to a Super Bowl before Josh Allen. The nightmare from a narrative standpoint is this. Josh puts up the numbers. Josh gets the regular season wins. If Lamar gets to a Super Bowl and wins one, Lamar is a Super Bowl champion. Will be a Super Bowl champion quarterback with 2 MVPs. If Burrow gets to one, he's a 2-time Super Bowl appearing quarterback.
Getting ugly.
And he wins one. Like honestly, at this point, I would rather Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win 3 more Super Bowls.
That question has come up. I've heard it discussed on morning shows and other podcasts. Yeah, you would rather the Chiefs just keep winning than another team that's trying to get past the Chiefs win.
If we're picking doom scenarios, it's that the Chiefs win 10 Super Bowls and nobody could beat them, and we're like, fuck it, guys. Like, what can we do about it? We had the second best quarterback in that era.
Like, we had the second best quarterback of all time, and he just
and he couldn't beat the best team ever.
But
like,
if Joe Burrow wins like two like I'm on suicide watch then. Like we'll have like a horrible. Like I'll be like
that's the point where we're going into every season just like how are they going to do it this year? Like because there's a lot of people who are like that now. I think we still have enough optimistic people going into the year. There would be no optimism. They could be a 12-win team every year. It'd be no optimism from the fan base once these other quarterbacks, if they
let me put this question to you guys, and you especially, Bump, because you've been very defensive about Sean McDermott and people's perspective on him. How much does it matter who and at what point, if the Bills get ousted from the playoffs this season, as far as how we view Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills as a whole?
There's a big perception on the line. If the Bills somehow lost in the wild card round, regardless of who it is, half the fan base is calling for him to get fired. And he won't get fired because he'll have 13 or 14 wins. But the fan base will go into next year like, if you don't get to the AFC Championship minimum, like, you're gone. If he loses in the divisional round, I think it depends on who it comes against. If it's against Baltimore, people will be like, well, this really sucks. Like 4 straight years of falling in the divisional round. You can't win the big games. But Baltimore is really effing good, and we can understand why you fell short. If they lost to like a team like Pittsburgh or Houston, people are going to be like, yeah, we got to fire coach again. AFC Championship.
I think most people would agree if he reached another one, depending on how that went.
I think AFC Championship might be enough for like people to be like, well, it's tough against Kansas City. Yep. Or like you got us back to there. And then like going to the Super Bowl, people will just be like, damn, we're back in the Super Bowl. Like, I think, like, I don't mean this to, like, be weird, but I think just getting to the Super Bowl, not that that's the end goal for us. Like, we want to obviously win it. But I think just getting to the Super Bowl will give enough optimism to the fan base going forward that, like, okay, we're at least capable of getting past the Chiefs. Yes. And we can win one of these in the next 5-6 years. I think losing in the divisional round or before then is really where, like, you get into, like, the whole panic. Like, how the hell have we won 26, 30, 48 games in 4 years and not gone to an AFC Championship game during that time? Because, like, you look back at it now, like, the one AFC Championship appearance we've made in recent years was, like, the year that, like, it was just coming together. Like, the expectations going into that year were, let's just try to win a playoff game. Like, this is the year we have to win a playoff game. Like, no winning a Super Bowl, no making a deep run. Let's just see where we can go. Yeah. And it almost gives me this feeling that there probably
is. Like, it's a Kansas City
too much internal pressure.
But
think
it's a
there's
Kansas
not-
City problem too. I mean, that's 2 out of. If you would have told me they play them 3 and 4 years,
I would
I'm
say
saying they're getting 1.
Yeah.
Not.
I think it's
not
a
losing
Kansas
all
City
3.
problem, but I also think it's an internal pressure problem. I think this team tenses up in big moments. And when I say big moments, I'm not just saying late in the game. I'm talking about when they when they're
Do you
playing.
think? Do you think like the from what you know? Do you think like the attitude in the building changes because it's a loose building? Like when it clips to championship caliber is the thing where in the building.
I'll put it like this: when the Bills are playing Detroit and Kansas City in the regular season, I feel like they have a "there's nothing to lose here" mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know at the end of the day, their season is continuing, so they just put it all out there. They play loose football, and they play pretty damn good. I think in the playoffs, they tense up. They know that this is where they get judged, and if they fall short,
and it's a lot of pressure in the area too.
How much does the fact that this completely
this.
made over offense come into play?
Imagine
it's not there anymore, and it's a
I've been
whole
told stuff about the
collection of receivers.
I've been told stuff about the Cincinnati game when they lost in the playoffs a couple years ago. And I know everybody always talks about the rumors of the off the field stuff. And then they obviously saw Stephon Diggs blow up at Josh, but like not even like getting into the
be a little demonstrative, not so much blow up, but I get your point. Maybe behind the scenes, yeah.
Knowing what like happened behind the scenes between the two, I would say that was a blow up.
Okay.
But it wasn't just the offense. I was at Cover One at the time, and we had contacts with certain players, and there was a lot of defensive players on the team that thought that the Bills coaching staff overthought things. Like they
McDermott or the coordinators in particular, do you think?
I don't know exactly, but the defensive players were saying like we played loose and free all year round, and then the playoffs come and you're trying to like change everything up. And they said stuff like we're thinking, we're not reacting, we're not playing loose, we're thinking, and we're a step slow.
Well, so new variable here, Mike.
So like that's coaching, but
new
that's
variable here with this year's team. Sean McDermott's been in charge of these defenses for all these years. How much Leslie Frazier's involved, whatever we talk. Bobby Babich, new coordinator, new play caller. Could be. I'm not saying that he isn't the same way, and it's not all organizational culture thing, but it is an untested variable in these moments.
I don't even think it's just Bobby Babich. I think it's having Ken Dorsey. Like, what do you see when you see Andy Reid after a game? You see a level of looseness, like calmness, like the ability to relax. And I think a lot of times, like your ability as a coach to show a level of calmness and a cool demeanor,
for sure,
can reflect on how your players react in big situations. And I think in a lot of ways that Sean McDermott has been very stiff and rugged.
Hey, he's making jokes lately, though. He's had some good ones the last couple weeks.
I think that Sean is trying to give off a different demeanor with this group. I think having younger coordinators is him trying to be more relaxed. And I also think that getting rid of a lot of these veterans that were feeling the pressure of their careers winding down and having one or two final shots at a Super Bowl, I think them being gone, I don't think everything this offseason was about Diggs like changing everything. I think it was very much Diggs is part of the problem, but we also need to get rid of other people that we don't see in our window going forward. I think now you have look at a guy like Mac Hollins. He's close to 30 years old. I don't know his exact age, but he's just out there having fun. Like you have guys like Khalil Shakir who are very collected individuals. You have offensive linemen that like to joke around with Josh. You have Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid that are not these freaking out personalities. You have Amari.
It reminds me very. It reminds me very much of what I mentioned, the 2004 Red Sox. They called themselves the idiots. They were very loose. They grew their hair. They were very nonchalant. They didn't carry the burden of losing to the Yankees in the 86 years of not winning the World Series.
I wouldn't say that like this group is at that level, but like they have enough of that relaxedness where like they're not carrying the weight of the last 4 years. Like Josh is basically what's happening is Josh is assuming the weight and the burden of everything, but because of the guys around him not being the same, it's letting Josh kind of just be himself and be calm, cool, and collected. And you look at the defense, like ultimately, like does the defense need to play better when it matters? Yes. But are you going to be able to predict how you're going to show up against Cincinnati, Baltimore, or the Chiefs on a given Sunday? No. Like it's all what it comes down to is you're either going to show up or you're not. But as long as you know your offense is going to deliver 25 plus points, you're going to give yourself a chance. And I think what this team is basically out there thinking is we just freed up everything in our quarterback's head to be able to do what he needs. And I think Sean has taken on a looser mentality because he seems to realize that his team is reacting positively to that, and compared to a more rugged, tough approach.
Yeah.
He's joking about Blaines now. I mean, come on, like
Sam Josh should be MVP. Like he's
saying that too.
That like this is a noticeable change in the way he's carrying himself. And I think a lot of it is it's a coach that has
self-scouted.
Yeah, he's gone through a lot and he's realized that the way I've been on and off the field hasn't gotten the job done. And a lot of people like to say that like McDermott doesn't evolve. But the one thing I will give McDermott a ton of credit is his ability to evolve as a person and as a coach in a lot of different ways. And I have a million examples for the McDermott detractors, but ultimately he needs to get it done when it matters. And I hate these talks because we won't know until it actually matters.
Hey, listen, next week we're going to start putting pen to paper and start figuring these things out again because that's when it all starts mattering again.
One thing I want to mention before we wind this down as far as the Bills' goals and being able to get to the Super Bowl as a way to give McDermott a little bit more rope. Let's keep in mind that I don't believe we've had a Super Bowl loser return to the Super Bowl, not even the next year, but in subsequent years with the same coach and quarterback for possibly since the Bills.
So is that what
I think there is one?
No. It's it was on Pardon My Take the other day. They ran a little bit of this, calling it the curse of Jim Kelly. Actually, is that no team that lost the Super Bowl, their quarterback has returned back-to-back year
or even in subsequent
even separate years. Yes, losing quarterback has not gone back.
And lose.
Well, they already did that, and then they overcame it.
Well,
it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the one team. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are the Chiefs must be our.
But they had already won a Super Bowl before they lost one.
Oh yes, that's
so,
right.
Yeah,
so going to your first Super Bowl and
that makes sense.
Yes, first Super Bowl and losing. And so Burrow in that scenario, then Joe Burrow, buddy, you're toast. See you later. I'm just saying. And listen, the Bengals. Here's the thing about the Bengals that we do have to talk about to dunk on them a little bit. They got a big Jamar Chase and T. Higgins situation going on. Joe was like, "Hey, we got to pay these guys." I'm just interested to see how the Bengals have never paid anybody as much as they paid Burrow and Chase. So for them to pay another guy, it's going to be crazy. So I'm interested to see the Bengals offseason, depending on what happens this weekend.
For sure.
But we haven't gotten there. You're right, Mike. That's an interesting trend there with the quarterbacks. I don't know what to think about that. So who's out then? Hurts is out. See you later, Jalen Hurts. No shot for you, buddy. I think that's it. Oh, Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
Brock Purdy. I don't even think Brock Purdy's a 49er.
Okay.
LOL.
The 49ers have gotten back to the Super Bowl in recent years with I believe.
But they had Jimmy G and then Brock Purdy. Yeah. So.
But I mean, it was the same overall team.
Same vibe.
Makeup.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to do.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So we're all picking. So let's wrap up here. We're not giving a Bills Patriots prediction. I don't care about that.
We haven't even talked about the Patriots in this entire hour and a half that we've been discussing.
No Patriots talk. Let Drake May get like 500 yards. Like,
are you kidding me, Jake?
Hey, Drake, listen. If you want to do a bunt take and put a bonus episode out, by all means, we appreciate the content.
I spent 3 hours today breaking down Patriots film from last week.
I'm sorry. You'll get compensated fairly, but we're not going to do that tonight, Mike. I'm sorry. Do you have a prediction? Do you have a big Drake May take you want to unleash?
My prediction is that the Bills are going to win because the Patriots don't want to give up the number 1 overall pick.
I think.
The players want it though. Come on now. It's going to be like 14-13 Pats.
Mitch, it's the battle of North Carolina quarterbacks.
It
Oh,
is.
that's true.
This shows why he went 2 and Drake May went 3.
I like
Wow.
it. We
Good
get
point.
we get Denver. Is that what we're gonna predict? Everybody's thinking Denver wins and handles their business.
Fair.
Most likely, I
I
guess.
agree.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I would be interested to see Bo Nix and Sean Payton coming into Orchard Park. That'd be fun. But all right, we paid the bills. This is a great show. Thank you guys all for joining. Shout out to our sponsor, Picasso's Pizza. We'll be back to talk playoff football next
Playoffs?
Tuesday. We'll be back on Tuesday. That was good. That was good. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Go Sabres. Go Bills.
Let's go Bills.